Welcome to a video from thislifestyle.com. In this video I'm going to show you how you can make ambient patches on the Korg Modwave, big ambient sounds, not just through reverb but using all the different modulation options you've got on the Modwave, and there's a lot. And so we're making sounds like this, but what we're going to do from this, we're going to start from scratch and see how we build these sounds out. So this actually is a sound that I originally created using vector synthesis, and I've got a whole set of vector synthesis patches coming soon, but for now we're going to start with this Init Performance. I'm using the software version of the Modwave native, from an actual Modwave is here, but for the recording of the screens and everything it's easier on there, so I'm using the MIDI to control it. So there you can hear the basic patch. Now with the Modwave we've got two layers. So we're going to be using the two layers, but we'll start off with the single layer and the first oscillator. And the key to this is, aside from the sort of infinite reverb, that kind of thing, is to include movement. So what I'm going to start with is a wavetable, and I'm going to try a vector type wavetable. So this one is a nice glassy one that's got some movement in it. So in fact, make sure I select the right one. Okay, so we can hear that, and if I go through it. So the first thing we need to do is introduce some movement and envelope as well. So let's look at some movement in it first. So I think we could use an envelope for this, or we could use LFO. I'm going to use LFO on this, so oscillator 1's LFO, just to cycle this through. Now, if I just put it on the quite high, it doesn't sound very ambient there or very mellow, but that's okay. I'm going to narrow it down so it's not huge, and find a thing that I think should work well. I'll try that one, and now I'm going to go to the LFO and slow it right down, because that's what we need, that slowness. Okay. Good start. So now let's go to the envelope, and I'm going to introduce that sort of slow attack. In fact, no, what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the attack as it is and add the release. I'm going to show you a little trick for the envelopes in a minute. So we're going to leave that envelope alone for now, and then if I go to oscillator 2, have a different. You want a different tone for this now, because what I'm going to use for this oscillator 2 is it's going to come in at a 5th, I think. Let's try it as a 5th. So there you go. You hear them both there. But what I'm going to do, we'll leave oscillator 1 on. In fact, I'll turn it down for now. But we're going to leave it actually up, and oscillator 2. I'm going to use envelope 2 for that oscillator envelope 2, because what I want to do with this is bring that 5th in slowly. So let's set the modulation right up, there you can hear it kicking in. So we're going to have it a bit slower, a bit more decay for it, maybe a bit slower. There we go. So that sounds about right. And don't forget, this is running a 5th up, so you could run it a 7th. We'll try that, and I'm actually going to take this an octave higher as well. There you go, you can hear that kicking in there. Now, to keep things interesting as well, we've got that glassy effect. What we are going to do with that one is make that change slightly, and I might as well use the oscillator 2's envelope for that to change. So there, we're getting somewhere now. But I still think I should have a slow intro on that, so maybe I will just bring that envelope down a bit. Okay, that's sounding like it. So now we've got that wave being modulated, we've got the envelopes on there as well, and we could introduce some other things, so maybe a bit of stretching on that. Let's see what that sounds like. So we're back on oscillator 1. So maybe we should use some LFO on that. And don't forget we've got a nice slow LFO as well. So go back to oscillator 1 now. I might want to reduce that down a little bit and put a bit of pitch modulation on that, and we'll use the pitch LFO for that. Very subtly. There we go. Now we could do things like modify the wave types. We could use an AB oscillator as well. So this one here, say this high one we've got. What we could do there is go for an AB and switch between different wave types, but I think I'm happy with that for now. We could also modify the phase. I don't think we need to do anything else on that. We've got one other trick we can use with this. We've got the sub-oscillator. If we now we could use that as well to have a bit low, but obviously we don't want it kicking straight in. So what I'm going to use that with an envelope. We're going to use oscillator 2's envelope because I'm not using that at the moment, because you don't have, doesn't matter what you tie it with. So you can hear that kicking in now. Now we could use that with a bit of noise. And I think it would sound better if we had a bit of LFO on that. So I'll use oscillator 2's LFO. Now, does it sound better with a bit of filter noise? Or does that sound better with a square? Let's leave it as the square for now. So we're now using those envelopes. We've not looked at mod sequencer yet, but I think it's time to put some effects on. So I'm going to have a bit of compression, a bit of chorus, bit of tape echo, and where things really give you that ambient is on the main reverb. If we choose, I like the cathedral, but also the infinite space makes it sound good as well. So let's put that layer through. Can you hear that sub kicking in there? Now what we could do is include a bit of movement in that in the stereo field as well. So we know LFO 1 is running quite slow, so maybe that would be quite good to move around. And that envelope is actually fading out a bit too soon, so I'm gonna, we used, what did we have, envelope 2 for that, didn't we? So I'm gonna add a bit of decay on that one, because I want that a bit around a bit longer. Notice we've not touched the envelope yet. So something else we could use is we could do a bit of combination of stuff and include a bit of resonance in there. So we could use the Kaoss, we could use the mod controls, but I was kind of automating this, so I think we'll use a bit of velocity and the pitch LFO, because I haven't changed that one. And let's just add a bit of resonance in there. That sounded quite good. Actually, what I'm going to do with the, I'm going to use the filter LFO as well to control that filter cutoff. We haven't touched. I do like these slower filters, so, or the slower LFO. So let's reduce that down. What you can do, you can make the speed of the LFO changed based on something else. So you could actually have it based on another LFO, or you could have it one of the mod controls, or let's use it on the mod wheel like this. So I've got the mod wheel to control it. I could give that cut off. I'm also going to put it on mod 1 as well. Okay, so that is what we would call our layer 1. So let's save that one and we'll call it Ambient layer 1. So we've not used the sequencer and we've not used the arpeggiator yet. Now the sequencer, as well as pitch, you've got four lanes as well. So you can use these for 4 more modifiers over time. So effectively 4 more envelopes or 4 patterns, whatever you decide you want to go with it. And the pitch is also useful as well. I think I'm going to leave that for this layer. I'm now going to switch layers to layer B. Back to our basic. And I want to use this for a bit of random sort of motion, sort of pings and something like that. So I'm going to get, so there's our basic wave, and for this I'm going to have this, it's quite high, that's it, and I'm not going to use the main amp for that. I'm going to use oscillator 1s, and I'm just going to give this a nice ping effect by turning the volume down and using envelope 1. Sounds like not much is happening there, so that's exactly what I want. And then if I go to the sequencer, I'm going to say let's put the, now I could use the envelope. I'm using the envelope there, and I'm going to almost randomly trigger the volume. So I could use the volume here instead of the envelope. So where I've done the envelope there, I could actually just go to the sequencer. So you can see is it pulsing through those, and I could use the shape, and I could pick a shape from here like an envelope. You can hear that on there. Actually it sounds quite, let's have it as a, so what I can do is I can copy that to the other, but let's copy to the other and I'll introduce some variation and say So I could do it that way, or I could go back and take the lane off this and actually use back to the envelope generator so that it gets triggered as I play the keys. So back to the one, wasn't it? So I've got still control, I can play it, but if I go to the envelope, I can make it be triggered by those steps. So maybe I want a few less of these. It's at threshold over 50. That sounds it what I want. Doesn't sound very much yet. I'm going to have it as a square tone, I think. A bit like a Morse code thing. So there we go. Now, let's say it doesn't sound very much, but then if I go back to here, let's put the bit of effect on it. I'm going to not use a tape echo. I'm going to use a stereo delay. And of course, we get it on the main effects as well. That's more like it. Now, it's probably a bit too much. It's 120 BPM at the moment. So I think maybe I'll have a few less of these. Let's see what it sounds like. That's okay. So that's our one layer from there. And then to introduce something on the second layer, I'm going to try something a bit different. Let's try a sample and let's see if we can give it ethereal, a bit of a church organ type. And we should have a church organ on here somewhere. So there's the church. Again, I'm going to use the envelope for that one. Oh, I'm going to use oscillator 2's envelope. So we'll go to oscillator 2 envelope, and we have a very long attack on that and a bit of decay. So. It's okay. I think it might be a bit loud, that, so let's bring that down. Okay. And I might actually, when I go back to oscillator 1, I'm going to bring that in at the 5th, I think. In fact, let's even be clever with that. Let's go back to our sequencer and use some pitch. So 0 and then 5th, 7th, and 12th. Let's try that. And I'm not going to go all the way through. I'm just going to cycle through those. Let's see. Now, of course, that pitch lane is affecting the organ there, which I don't want to do. So let's use this other lane here. And we're just going to use this. So go back to here, the transpose, and make it. Which I don't like the sound of that, to be honest. I might just leave one on there. Let's see what that does. That's more like it. So we've still got the sub we could use on this, so I am going to use a noise for that one, I think. And for that I want a bit of a rhythmic section, so we're going to use the layer C for that one to introduce a bit of rhythm. So I'm just kind of playing there, so I'll turn that down and give that to be C. So we're on linear, so that's... Let's try that on off. There you go, you can hear it. I think that might sound better at 0. Now to make it a bit more interesting, let's put a bit of a... Let's also put a bit of LFO on there. Let's use the filter LFO. Let's actually add some filtering. So that sounds quite good if it's introduced really slowly. So take that off. Right, so now we've got the filter on it. A bit slower attack. So I've got, I've changed my mind on those. I'm going to have oscillator 1 controlling that noise, and I'm going to also use an envelope on it as well, so it'll have a in fact, let's go back to oscillator 1 LFO. I don't think we're using that for anything else, are we? And I'm going to fade that in quite a bit. That's it. Right, let's call that. So let's put both layers on now. So quite a lot of modulations going there, but basically the waveforms aren't been that overly complicated. Now what we could do is go for something like that, sort of the beeping sound that we've got on oscillator 1. We could do a whole lot more with that. I could have 2 waveforms, so it could start out as a square wave, and then we could go to something like pulse width modulation by going through in fact, we probably want to go for something quite different, so let's go for something a bit more vocal. Might have to just change the envelope so we can hear a bit. And I think I'm going to lose that pitch as well. So we're going to put some modulation on there, and for that I am going to use the sequencer. We'll use lane D. If you look at lane D, we could just bring it up or down. I'm actually going to choose a random pattern. There you go, that was a fairly random one. So we can use that D. Okay, that's good. Now what we haven't done anything with unisons or any random. We could introduce a little bit of random in there. We haven't messed with the filter either. We've still got those same filters. If you wanted to get a different effect, you can go for a high pass, so you're just getting the top frequencies. You've still got layer 1 doing the low. I just can't hear layer 1 at the moment. Okay, I couldn't hear layer 1 a second ago because I had the the mod rate right up. So we've got layer 1 doing the low and layer B doing with the high pass. So bring them together. Now it's still, to me, quite musical as well, because we're using the organ, the pipe organ, and we've still got that oscillator 2 that's on there is doing the pipe organ. That gives us the nice solid feel to it. What we could do is look at oscillator 1. Take the trigger off and just use the envelope of oscillator 1, change that to go with a slow attack, a long decay, release and sustain. I'm going to try this a 7th up. There we go. So actually I prefer that now. And we cut it. You can hear the effect of that wave being modified there. If I bring it up to the full, hear that's sync. Let's try and change that to a bit of stretch. So that step D is introducing that randomness. So back to the envelope. Okay, so let's save that now as our right, so I've saved that as the layers now. So this is our finished patch. Now what we could do is we could introduce some Kaoss control, so I could some real-time performance on it then. So maybe I use the Kaoss X to control the resonance and Kaoss Y for the filter. Only on this pad, and we'll leave it. We won't, on this layer, we won't touch the other layer. Okay, so I think that's gives you an idea of what we've got there. So that's my Ambi Layers pad. Let's save that one. So the other one that I worked on was, so this is another one that I have used in the vector synthesis. This is the one I used at the start. Using exactly the same techniques on that one, but actually I think I prefer that one we've just created now. So hopefully that will help you with your ambient sounds on the Modwave. Of course this applies to other synths as well, not just the Modwave. All these techniques apply to any synth where you've got modulation controls and modulation techniques. So I hope you like this one. If you've got any tips for the Modwave, let me know. If you want to see any of the other videos, let me know. Init@thedigital-lifestyle.com. Coming soon, a Profit vector synthesis patch for the Modwave. Thanks for watching.